Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you today on this beautiful Tuesday here in Boston. I hesitate to emphasize beautiful a little too much because some of you have been chiming in that your own weather is a little bit inclement these days. Snow in the Midwest, snow in Iowa, snow in the Chicago suburbs. Hoping that doesn't happen here. I'm not trusting that it won't because we just had a little snow just a few days ago here, even though it was mid-April. And I remember last year when it snowed in June. So I'm not counting anything as certain. But nevertheless, this is a day for spending ample amounts of time calmly strolling around outside. My little bean bustles along. Don't you, baby? She bustles along, but she doesn't pull on a leash. And she doesn't need to go fast at all. She's so small that she can bustle very busily without making me goose step. so it's perfect. She's perfect for walking. She's interested in everything. She wants to go everywhere, but she's not rude. She doesn't pull on the leash or anything like that. Those of you, the tiny handful of you who have actually visited here when she was a little puppy. I don't think I've had many visitors when she wasn't a puppy. It's sometimes a little saddening for me to think how much of her life has been COVID. But those of you who might have visited when she was a little puppy might feel the urge to take issue with me saying she's not rude, because you probably had your fingers bitten until they were raw. But she isn't anymore. She isn't any more rude. And she's wonderful to walk with, wonderful company, because she's interested in everything. But anyway, I've got some mail, and we'll start off with some periodicals, including one that's a little strange. One is not strange. One is the Vineyard Gazette, the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. Broadsheet newspaper from the island of Martha's Vineyard that has on the front page a whole bunch of COVID news and how it's affecting the island and whatnot. But the really important story is below the fold. For the very first time in vineyard history, a pileated woodpecker was reliably sighted and also photographed. Incredible. So I don't know if that, I haven't checked, see if that's actually going to make it to the nature and bird columns on the back of the Vineyard Gazette. The very back page of the Vineyard Gazette are 3 columns, all outdoors, birds, and vineyard gardener, that are the main draw of the paper. I hate to say it, because I am often on the inside of the paper, and they're editorials and island news, but it doesn't matter. Most people go to these, and I can't believe. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, it did. It made the bird news. It made the bird news as well. This was filmed in 2009 in Florida. Okay, this is from a Florida thing. But it was spotted and photographed in Vineyard Haven on April 9th. This sighting of a black and white and crow-sized bird with a big red crest atop its head is a first for the vineyard. Amazing. So literally you get it coming and going because it's on the front page and the very back page of the Vineyard Gazette. And you have to like a paper that has its priorities straight. But then the little mystery thing was this. I got a complimentary issue of People magazine. I haven't read an issue of People magazine in I don't know how long. I actually think that the last time I read an issue of People magazine, I was waiting in a doctor's office. I know it's synonymous with waiting in the doctor's office, but they sent me an issue. Notice, I did not tear this apart. This can come in very handy for what comes out of that. So I do not throw it away. I'll give it a use. But I don't know why they would do this, because I don't subscribe. So let's find out together. First of all, why they did it, and then what we've got here. So is this going to tell me that it is a complimentary issue? You've been chosen to get a best deal, 80% off. So it's the year savings would be $20. No mention of why I got an issue. I imagine they're just doing it to bait the hook. I'm not totally against the idea of spending $20 on a year subscription, but it would have to mean that there's something in this for me, and it isn't going to be Brad Paisley. You know, much as I like his music, he has one particular song. He has a lot of songs that are really good, and he has a couple that are just maudlin and unbearable. But he has one song that I think is really clever about. The narrator of the song is talking about how his wife gave him an ultimatum: their marriage, or his fishing. and then there's a beat, and then the chorus kicks in, I'm gonna miss her. So it's a very good song. But I wouldn't, it's not enough to float a whole issue. So naturally, when I get a magazine like this, the very first thing I want to do is see what the book's coverage is. Because we book people are hopeless. We know, as I've mentioned many times, we know that the world doesn't care about our little hobby, and yet we look for it everywhere. Oh, so there's an opening piece about Prince Harry hitting the beach in Santa Barbara, California, because he has moved to Santa Barbara with his viciously controlling wife, Meghan Markle, and who has done, she has just gone by the complete playbook of a certain kind of girlfriend, the kind of girlfriend that I used to rail against in college. To the point where some of my friends who weren't paying close attention thought and said the incorrect summary, which is Steve hates girlfriends. That was never true. And a lot of those people later on figured it out. A lot of them figured out later on. They got demonstrative proof that Steve doesn't hate girlfriends. Steve hates one particular kind of girlfriend, the kind that wants to, they have a playbook and they never vary from it. One of the very first things they do is separate you, the boyfriend, from your key man, whoever that is, your closest friend, your confidant, whoever that one person is. They've got to go. But they also separate you from your family. That also has to go. Eventually they concentrate on your world, and you can see it everywhere. Those beings, I don't even consider them human, and of course I hated them, but I didn't hate girlfriends. No, a lot of the girlfriends that I didn't hate went on to become wives that I don't hate. I don't have any problem with them at all. People who are going to form a relationship of equals, where your wife really is your best friend instead of the lie that so many of those cultified boyfriend said, she's not just my girlfriend, she's my best friend. And I would say, are you allowed to talk to anybody else? Oh, not really. Well, then she's not your best friend, she's your jailer. And maybe Harry will come to that conclusion down the line. That could easily be. Typically speaking, the boyfriends who fall into such unions with such creatures, the thing that disillusions them typically is when they discover that the girlfriend who has demanded all of these sacrifices is having sex with someone else, and that usually causes the scale to drop from their eyes. I don't know if that'll turn out to be true in this case, but so this is just a gossip magazine, right? People Magazine is just a gossip magazine. There's Idris Elba. Idris Elba has. If you're telling me that's his son, I'm going to be. No, that's Caleb McLaughlin, whoever that is. That kid is Caleb McLaughlin. Idris Elba made the news in the UK just recently because a pundit said about his show Luther that it wasn't black enough. That Idris Elba wasn't black enough because the character Luther had no black friends and didn't eat Caribbean food. It's just another perfect example of the kind of absolutely 1950s hood-wearing racism that we have allowed back into the public square, as long as it is masquerading as being for some sort of progressive cause. If you're allegedly calling for more blackness, then you can be as racist as you want. If you're being ironclad, just raw, caustic racist against white people, go ahead and do it. You know, Bob's your uncle. And I was happy to see the pushback against that. The pushback against that commentator and that whole idea, what are we doing here with this, with all of this explicitly racist talk that we're just allowing to happen. I was happy to see that. And of course, like all right-thinking people, I very much want an Idris Elba James Bond. It'd be the best James Bond I can think of, very much including the Sean Connery James Bond. If the rest of you dude bros could get off that, it would be nice. I would love to see that. I don't know if we ever will, but I would love to see that. Okay, then we have a piece about Blake Shelton. 20 years of his career. The Blake Shelton with the long hair is responsible for yet another great country music song called Austin. Might have been his debut. Might have been his breakout number. But it's incredible. the song Austin is incredible. I don't know so much about the video, but the song is amazing. Just pure country gold. We've got a homes and gardens section. We've got an article about Steve Irwin's 17-year-old son, Robert Irwin. Looks like he's going to. That looks like some sort of pangolin. It looks like he's going to continue in the family tradition of harassing wildlife. There's a young woman in a cow puddle. She's cuddling with cows. Little bit of a snapshot of the 21st century there. Not only is she wearing that mask wrong, but she doesn't need to wear it at all. So the cows aren't in any danger, and neither is she. But nevertheless, that is kind of sweet. And believe it or not, some of you might look at this picture and say, "Oh, that's so gross." But that is really a wonderful moment. It is wonderful when a cow trusts you enough to put their enormous head in your lap. And I don't just say that because I had a basset hound. But are we okay? So as usual here, we just sort of forlornly page along, hoping that we will get to books. Oh, look at that! I got to books. The best new books. Oh, I'll be the judge of that, won't I? So are they going to mention anything that I have read? Cynthia Sweeney's book, Good Company, I have not read. Hunter Biden's memoir, Beautiful Thing, I have on the docket, but I haven't read it yet. When the Stars Go Dark by Paula McLean. Have any of you read that? I haven't got to it yet. Anna Hart is a missing persons detective who is on the run herself. When an intolerable tragedy shatters her family, as opposed to a tolerable tragedy, well, that'd be a toothache. She flees to her hometown of Mendocino, where she immediately becomes obsessed with the hunt for a missing girl. A total departure for the author of The Paris Wife, McLean's emotionally intense and exceptionally well-written thriller entwines its fiction crimes with real cases. Okay, well, I know this author from her historical fiction, and I've liked it. So this is a contemporary thriller. That's interesting. But what about nonfiction? Oh, God. Okay, yes, we do have nonfiction. And it proves a point that I made on this channel just the other day about the general critical conversation. Every once in a blue moon, a book will come along that literally every venue that has any kind of books coverage feels obliged to mention. And Blake Bailey's biography of Philip Roth is one of those books. It's in People magazine. They probably love it. Yes, granted access to the literary lion's friends and interviews with the man himself before the 2018 death, Bailey makes Roth, in all of his brilliant, misogynistic, self-regarding complexity, come alive. Well, I might not agree with that completely, but at least it proves my point, which is that every once in a while a book comes along that really does get universal treatment. And it is a thrill to be in that conversation. It is a thrill to have that. I don't know if my review for the Christian Science Monitor has gone up yet. I'll have to check with that. I'll have to check with the timing just of my reviews in general. I never do know that. Unless it's a venue that I myself control, I never know the timing. But I don't think that it has gone up yet. Maybe it has, and I'm wrong about that. But is that going to be all of the books? Of course, my review is pending in the Christian Science Monitor, but I also have a review, a freelance review in Big Canoe News in Northern Georgia. My very first issue, the April issue that is out now. You could go to Big Canoe News and subscribe. $30 a year will get you 12 issues, 12 big, bursting, colorful issues, once a month for a whole year for $30. Only a little bit more than the cost of a year subscription to People magazine, but you'll get a lot better books coverage. But one of my reviews in that issue is a review of the Blake Bailey Philip Roth, a negative review, one of the few I imagine it will get, although my own review in the Christian Science Monitor is also fairly negative. What have we got here? What else have we got here? Long article about the great Eartha Kitt. Some cooking. I don't think we're going to get back to books. I think that's about it. Just about 200 words of prose, I think, is all that books are going to get. Long article about community gardening. Huge amounts of ads for cereals and cosmetics. More and more cooking. Good Lord. Look at how much cooking there is. And that's it. So that is an issue of People magazine. I don't know that I'll subscribe. If that's what all they consider to be books covers, I don't think I'll subscribe. But then we have actual books themselves, and I am no longer fanatically on the hunt for May finished copies. So let her rip. Let's see what this is. Anything is fine with me now because I'm no longer caring about building a May issue of anything. So let's see what this first one is. Okay, this is going to be a paperback original. This is by Goliarda Sapienza, and it is called Meeting in Positano. So it's going to be. This is basically what it's going to look like. Like many times before, the literary talents of Italian actress and author Goliarda Sapienza were only recognized after her death, when her posthumously published The Art of Joy garnered wide acclaim across Europe and America. Other press is delighted to bring more of Sapienza's work to light with the provocative, deeply personal Meeting in Positano, inspired by the author's time in the tiny Amalfi Coast and the friendship that transformed her life. From her first visit to Positano to scout for an upcoming film, Goliarda was drawn to Erica, an aristocratic, sharp-witted beauty. She soon learns that from friendly locals that Erica is nicknamed Princess, and is both a widow and an orphan, legendary for her family's royal history and her undeniable elegance. Though wildly different, Erica and Goliarda become fast friends, and they find they're comfortable sharing everything with each other, even the most devastating secrets of their past. Okay, fantastic. So this is translated by Brian Robert Moore, and it comes out in mid-May in a paperback. And it's a novel. The pub sheet was entirely about autobiography, but it is being billed, as you can see, as a novel. I'd be willing to bet there's not a single detail in it, even down to the shrimp scampi, that didn't actually happen. But it's nevertheless being called a novel. It's not anything. It's not a world I know anything about. So that's good. Let's see what the next one is. Oh my. Okay, we're sticking with fiction, but we're shifting registers. We're going to a summer book, and it's only understandable that we would start to see summer books in our mail halls. And those summer books, you can identify them immediately. They have beach blankets, they have Adirondack chairs, they have crabs. Get your mind out of the gutter. They have big red lobsters and beach scenes. They're meant to be stuffed in a big canvas tote bag and brought to the beach, if anybody does that. I don't know that anybody does that. But this is by Nancy Nagel, and it's called The Shell Collector. Very good example of the genre. In the same heartwarming and graceful style that has earned her so many accolades and thousands of loyal fans, USA Today best-selling author Nancy Nagel weaves an inspiring story about three broken souls who find their paths converging as they learn the value in finding and being found. In this novel is quintessential summer beach light reading, highlighting the value of intergenerational friendships, invites readers to quaint Welks Island, and takes them on a journey that reveals the power of how even the smallest gifts can change a life for good and bring healing and renewal and redemption. So the publisher, they are marketing this as a summer beach read, and I don't mean to sound dismissive of them, and I also don't mean to confine them to that venue, because I have read these things in all weathers, and the ones that are done well are done really well. They are very uplifting in the end. You can guarantee that there's going to be an uplifting ending, but they can be far more brutal in terms of the quotidia of daily life. Protracted and uncinematic illnesses, gigantic and uncinematic financial troubles. They can be fairly bare-knuckled with that sort of stuff, but they're going to lift you up at the end. 2 years after her husband's death, Amanda Whittier has 2 children to raise alone, an abandoned dream of starting a business, and a fixer-upper cottage by the sea. There is always a fixer-upper cottage by the sea. She has no room in her life for anything else, and little interest in moving on after losing the only man she ever loved. Paul Grant is a relative newcomer to the area, and his work with former military dogs needing rehabilitation, I like him already, has transformed a neglected box store into a thriving center of community. Though he loved once before, he's convinced he's not suited for romance and is determined to find meaning alone through his work and role on the island. And that leaves us with one extra person. Who is the other person? Widowed Maeve Lindsay was born and raised on Welks Island. Spirited, kind, and a little mischievous, she pours her life into the town, but she carries a secret that shapes her every move. Okay, well, it sounds like fairly standard beach fiction, and I'm all for it. A couple of the authors of beach fiction, Mary Kay Andrews, Ellen Hildebrand, are some of my favorite writers of contemporary fiction. They just know a good thing when they've got it. They want their books to be stacked at Vineyard Haven bookstores and Hilton Head and everywhere else where people flock for the summer. And maybe by summer, people will be flocking to such places. Maybe not with the abandon that we ever had before, but it stands to reason since I think yesterday, the United States government announced that every adult in America is now eligible for the vaccine. They started phasing it out first for different groups. Are you on the front lines? Are you elderly? Do you have comorbidities? That sort of thing. And they've been just inoculating millions and millions of people. And now every adult is eligible for this thing. Which means that by June, by the time people are congregating on beaches, the only people who won't be vaccinated are Trump supporters, and neo-Nazis who aren't going to get vaccinated, who just aren't going to do it. And in America, to our eternal shame, the breakdown of the demographic of the people who aren't going to get vaccinated is almost exclusively the same breakdown as Trump supporters. They aren't doing it. I don't get it. Donald Trump went on his chief lickspittle, Sean Hannity's show, and said that they should get vaccinated. Maybe they're paying more attention to what he does than to what he says. Always a good idea. But one way or another, I don't know. Those people will still be getting sick. They'll still be getting innocent people sick. But the thing is, if the rest of the country, if normal people can get vaccinated, and all of them are, let's say, by late June, then the only people who will be sick will, one way or another. That was a digression. I don't know, is what I'm trying to say, what the shape of summer will be like in 2021. I don't think it'll be as dire as in 2020. People will be able to congregate, at least in some controlled kind of way. Although, I mean, they did congregate in 2021, or in 2020, but only to cause super spreader events. I guess the thing with the vaccination, if you're in a crowd of people, a crowded beach, for instance, or a beachside restaurant, and every single person there has been vaccinated, then, you're unlikely to contract COVID-19, and if you do, you're unlikely, very unlikely, to get it severely. Certainly, virtually no chance you'll get it severely enough to go to the hospital and to die of it. Virtually no chance of that. And I think that the knowledge of that might go a long way towards easing the kind of feelings that we have now towards congregating, that normal people have now towards congregating. So we'll see. This getting the first of Beach Book of the season. There are a couple coming. I don't know if they're out yet. There are a couple coming. There are 2 beach books that are coming out this year that both have to do with a seaside bookstore. And that is perfect. It's been my experience that the people who tend to gravitate towards beach books are bookish people. And there's not one but 2 of those. One of them is, I think, called the Beachfront Bookstore, something like that, but there are 2 of them. But anyway, this comes out in mid-May. And it is this another paperback original? Yes, it is. This is another paperback original. So this also is going to be just what it looks like. It's going to be a $14 paperback. In mid-May. All right. I'm curious to know, though, what about the rest of you? I mean, what are you thinking about the vaccine, about being vaccinated? I imagine a lot of you are vaccinated already. How is it going to change your behavior? If you are vaccinated, it'll be really, really hard for you to get COVID-19 in a strength that will incapacitate, hospitalize, or kill you. And the impression I get is that if you're careful with your normal stuff, wearing a mask when you're in a really crowded space, washing your hands, that sort of thing, if you're careful with that sort of thing, I think you also can't transmit the virus, anything like the freedom that you might once have had. So I'm curious, if that's true, how is that going to change your behavior? When you look forward to this coming summer, what are you thinking? When you look forward to a world, let's say you're in America, and you look forward to a world where by June, the only people who aren't vaccinated are cult members, are Trump cult members, and all the normal people are vaccinated, because it's just a virus and it's just a vaccine, then how is that going to change your world? Is it at all going to change your world? Will it at least, for the bookish crowd I'm talking to, will it at least make you a little more comfortable maybe going to library book sales? Will it mean that your local library starts to have library book sales again? Will you be more comfortable going to a bookstore? Will your bookstores be open? I'd love to hear about all that, but mainly because I'm nosy. I'm just a nosy kind of person. Let's move on here. We've got 2 more packages to go here. No boxes this time around. This next one is a finished copy. I'm not yearning for finished copies, but we'll see. We'll see what we have here. Oh. Oh my. Okay, I knew this was coming. Talk about a book that is destined for a certain collection in Vermont. Good Lord. This is by Patrick O'Donnell, and it is called The Indispensables. The diverse soldier mariners who shaped the country, formed the Navy, and rowed Washington across the Delaware. And that is a detail from the famous painting. There are the soldier mariners, and right over here, that knee belongs to the heroic Washington, who of course did not stand, and the rowing was not done. It didn't look anything like this heroic painting, but oh my, that sounds really good. All right, so what have we got here? On a stormy night of April 29th, 1776, the Continental Army faced capture or annihilation after losing the Battle of Brooklyn. The British had trapped George Washington's forces against the East River, and the fate of the revolution rested upon the shoulders of the soldier mariners from Marblehead. Serving side by side in one of the country's first diverse units, Pete's sake. Okay, well, let's just push on. They pulled off the American Dunkirk and saved the army by transporting it across the treacherous waters of the river to Manhattan. In the annals of the American Revolution, no group played a more consequential role than the Marbleheaders. At the right time and in the right place, they repeatedly altered the course of events, and their story shines new light on our understanding of the Revolution. Acclaimed historian Patrick O'Donnell dramatically recounts, beginning nearly a decade before the war started, and in the midst of a raging virus that divided the town politically, Marbleheaders such as Elbridge Gerry and Azor Orne spearheaded the break with Britain and shaped the nascent United States by playing a crucial role governing, building alliances, seizing British ships, forging critical supply lines, and establishing the origins of the U.S. Navy. The Marblehead Regiment. He's making all these claims for the Marblehead Regiment. Good Lord, that's fantastic. The Marblehead Regiment, led by John Glover, became truly indispensable. Marbleheaders battled at Lexington and on Bunker Hill and formed the elite guard that protected George Washington. Then, at the most crucial time in the war, the Special Operations-like regiment, against all odds, conveyed 2,400 of Washington's men across the ice-filled Delaware River on Christmas night, 1776, delivering momentum-shifting surprise attack on Trenton. Later, Marblehead Dr. Nathaniel Bond inoculated the Continental Army against the deadly virus which changed the course of history. White, black, Hispanic, and Native American, this uniquely diverse group of soldiers set an inclusive standard for unity in the U.S. Army that would not be reached again for more than 170 years. The Marbleheaders Chronicle, never fully told before, now makes The Indispensables a vital addition to the literature of the American Revolution. All right, well, there's a bit, as you can see, the thing that was making me roll my eyes, there's a bit of 21st century posturing and virtue signaling in the description. The book may not do that, and certainly the reason, those of you who know your Moby Dick, those of you who know your American history off Marblehead will know that inclusiveness, that diversity, all these 21st century buzzwords, they were an actual reality for any whaling town, but also for, especially for a totally sea-obsessed town like Marblehead. We saw that, was it last year, or was it very early this year, in Whaling Captains of Color, a terrific book that I reviewed for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette about the fact that this was one area where black people, where gay-head Indians and whatnot, weren't just routinely discriminated against. It might have happened in the whaling towns themselves, but not on the open water, not when it was their talent that you needed. So that sounds absolutely fascinating. I wonder what kind of portrait of Washington it would give. We shall see. But I mean, I will do what I can with it, but clearly it is destined for Vermont. And then let's see what this last one is. Feels like another finished copy. It'd be ironic if I started to get finished copies when I don't need them. Yeah, it is. It's another finished copy. Yes, okay. I think we may have seen this before. This is a May 4th release. This is a May finished copy. This is Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is another example along the lines of Madeline Miller of a novel retelling a Greek myth through distinctly 21st century lenses. So what have we got here? I am Ariadne, Princess of Crete, though my story takes us a long way from the rocky shores of my home. So begins Jennifer Saint's transporting, spellbinding debut novel, a reimagining of the ancient story that reclaims the place of women in Greek mythology. They never lost it. There's no way to reclaim something that hasn't been lost. Women are extremely prominent in Greek mythology. They're not shunted to the side. They're not treated as adjuncts of men. They are extremely prominent. Not everything is political. Not everything is political. But anyway, let's move on here. Mythology remembers Ariadne for defying the gods and betraying her family to help the hero Theseus navigate her father's labyrinth and kill her brother, the horned Minotaur. But before Theseus arrived, Ariadne had a life all her own, greeting the dawn from her beautiful dancing floor and, alongside her beloved sister Phaedra, listening to her nursemaid stories of gods and heroes. After Theseus sailed off, winning fame, glory, and a wife for himself, Ariadne was forced to leave her homeland behind and forge a life all her own. Her story, long ignored, carries readers to sparkling Greek shores and wine-soaked feasts, bringing them face-to-face with legendary figures like Icarus and Dionysus. In a novel that has already garnered numerous comparisons to Madeline Miller's Circe, Saint restores Ariadne's place among these stars and marks her own arrival as a bold new writing talent. I'd completely forgotten that this is her debut novel. How wonderful for her. And let's see, who is she? Due to a lifelong fascination with ancient Greek mythology, Jennifer Saint read classical studies at King's College London. She spent the next 13 years as an English teacher, sharing a love of literature and creative writing with her students. And this is her first novel. Can you imagine how happy she must be? All that time teaching literature and instilling the love of reading in other people, and probably dreaming that whole time of having a novel of her own in bookstores, and here it is. How wonderful. How absolutely wonderful. See, the bean is happy. No, she's yawning. That is great. Fantastic. All right, well, this comes out in early May. It'll be in your bookstores in a week or two. And it is the May finished copy of the Times that I was dreaming for that I don't need anymore. But I have the advanced copy and have given it a read. I will gladly reread it for this hardcover. So there you go. That is the mail and all the fixins. Isn't it pretty? Isn't it? All so pretty. So we have Ariadne by Jennifer Saint, her debut novel, which is being upstaged very cruelly. And then we have The Indispensables by Patrick O'Donnell, a novel about the Marblehead Regiment. Not a novel, a history of the Marblehead Regiment and how they helped George Washington and the American Revolution. Fantastic. Then we have a beach book. The first one I think we've seen this year, The Shell Collector by Nancy Nagel. And finally, Meeting in Positano, I guess a posthumous novel by Galiarda Sapienza that looks like it is mimeographed straight from her personal experiences. As usual, a varied mix of books here. And we also have a complimentary issue of People magazine and the Martha's Vineyard Gazette. So a nice mix of things. And I have, as you can see, an impatient little bean. Yes, you're impatient. You probably can't tell that, because she isn't really emphatic. A truly impatient dog. Picture an impatient black lab. They'll be all over you. They'll be going, woof, woof, making a little protest barks because they want something. And she wants something. She wants to go outside. She wants to go for a walk in the sun. And I will give her that. She even knows the word outside, don't you, baby? You become alert for that. But even then, she's courteous about it. That's all I'm saying. This whole video has been about how wonderful my little dog is. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.